Welcome to this week's episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast, where experienced professionals, entrepreneurs, and community leaders based in Kingston upon Thames are invited on to share their story with us. I'm your host, Amir Rochalina.
This week's episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast is brought to you by Holland Harnham Wills, a financial planning and wealth management firm based in Kingston upon Thames. Holland Harnham Wills specialises in retirement planning for senior professionals and successful business owners. Visit hhw-uk.com to start feeling more relaxed and confident about your financial future.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast. I'm joined today by Francesca Raffa. Francesca is the founder of Spiral Collective, offering a safe space for you to connect with yourself on a deeper level in order to find a sense of clarity and purpose within your life's journey. What's unique about Francesca is how she's created connections with professionals from different fields to enable her clients to rediscover themselves, grow and evolve by experiencing a number of different alternative medicine modalities. And be sure to listen to the end, where Francesca shares with us some tips on mindfulness that will help you lead a more stress-free life. So whether you're interested in knowing more about mindfulness and well-being, or would like to know more about what it takes to run a successful independent business, then I hope you enjoy this episode of the Inside Kingston Podcast. Welcome, Francesca Raffa, to the Inside Kingston Podcast. Francesca, I'm really excited about this conversation because I think over these last 12 to 14 months that we've lived through this lockdown period here in the UK, people have really found the need to pause and to take some time to reconnect with themselves. And I'm sure that our listeners can learn a lot from your expertise in this area. But to kick off this conversation, I'd like to go back in time, if that's okay. So, Francesca, where did you grow up?
Oh, wow. This question for me is an interesting one. So I was born in Reading and I moved to Italy when I was 3-4 years old. I am originally half Italian. My father's Italian, but he was born and raised in Twickenham. So I moved to Italy when I was 3-4 years old, and I then moved to Portugal when I was 10 years old, and I lived there up until I was 19 and then moved back to the UK. So I say it's an interesting question for me, that one, just because it's, where are you from? It's kind of like, well, I'm from here, there, and everywhere, but I am also just from planet Earth. That's kind of how I like to answer that question.
I like that a lot. And actually, coincidentally, my background, my heritage is Portuguese and Italian. So we've already got something in common before we even start. Yeah. Francesca, did you go to university? And if so, what did you study?
No, I didn't go to university. I left school when I was 16. And I've always had this deeper understanding of wanting to explore life through experience. So I felt like, okay, I didn't know what I wanted to do, of course, but I just wanted to get in there and just get started at such a young age. But I did go and study contemporary jewelry. I also studied counselling. I've done sort of many different, I've dipped into many different sort of modalities and different things just because of my curious nature and wanting to learn. And I finally found my calling. So here I am.
Very cool. So bringing this conversation to the present, could you tell us a little bit about your business today?
Yes. So it's all started with my tea business, which is Spiral Tea. So I created Spiral Tea out the back of a passion of mine for healing herbs and the pure energetic properties that herbs contain that we can learn a lot from and we can utilize for our own healing properties and health. So it started with Spiral Tea, but I always knew that the tea was more of a tool towards much more. And what I wanted to do when creating Spiral Tea was always, my dream was always to run events with it and utilize the tea as part of the events. So that is exactly what I've done. And throughout that, I have then really found my way within energy healing. And this is what I'm doing today with Spiral Collective. So it's kind of the Spiral Collective is the umbrella brand with Spiral T within it, but it's offering services, one-to-one coaching, one-to-one energy healing, meditation, events, and just a bunch of fun stuff really that helps people connect back with themselves.
Absolutely. And I think this is a thread that I definitely want to pull further with you on this podcast, because you mentioned that your business, the umbrella business, if you want to call it that, Spiral Collective. And in fact, we got introduced by a previous guest from the show, which is happening quite a lot now on the show. I'm very proud to say, because you guys have been co-creating or have hosted an event on a joint basis. And I love that idea, Francesca, and I wanted you to expand a little bit further on that. So Spiral Collective is in fact a way for you, or has been a way for you, to create connections with other professionals in different fields to enable your clients to then rediscover themselves, to grow and to evolve with all of these different modalities. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. I feel on a self-discovery journey and becoming on your sort of spiritual path, it's really important to explore all the different modalities that there are. So obviously I have the ones that I am most, most connected to, or the ones that most resonate with me. And everyone kind of has their own thing that works for them, to find that stillness that helps them reconnect with themselves. And so this is why I find it great to co-create with other professionals that have expertise in different areas. For example, my friend Krish, obviously, who is an osteopath, but she also does yoga and breath work. And it's great to be able to co-create with others to offer a much wider range of modalities so that people can enjoy one of our experiences or and be able to connect with different people, but also to really find themselves within what they're doing, because again, it's so different. So they might have never explored any of it, and that's even better. But if they've maybe done one bit, they might have done some breath work, but they've never tried Reiki, or they've never sort of connected with herbs before or anything like that, then these kind of experiences that we do kind of offer a wide range of modalities to really get people into exploring what else is out there beyond what society kind of gives us.
Yeah. Can you give us an example of that? Could you just paint the picture for our listener who perhaps got curious with the way you position it just there? What would an experience, an event like that look like? And what are some of the benefits you've seen folks that put themselves through that experience sort of have at the end of it?
Yeah, so I have connected with quite a few different people and hosted events together. And it really depends on obviously who I'm co-creating with, but I always offer one part of the event, and they will always offer the other part of the event. But what it is that we really do is starting off with getting people to open up firstly. So they're always in a group setting. I believe groups are a really great way to connect and form bonds. So when you're in a group setting, yes, you're connecting with others, but actually you're learning so much about yourself, because sometimes somebody will say something that really resonates with you and you might not have even thought about it, but it's like, it's almost like it's part of you in a way. And also it's a great way for you to meet like-minded people, because sometimes on this journey, it can feel very alone when you are sort of connecting back to self and discovering things about yourself that you didn't know you had. You can feel quite alone. And so it's great to be in a group setting to find your like-minded people and be able to connect that way. But what the events consist of, like I said, if we want to talk about the particular one that I do with Krish, which is amazing, because what we've been doing, and I know she mentioned it in the last podcast, is we've been doing outdoor events. So this is an even more immersive experience, because we're then actually connecting deeply with the earth as well, being right there in nature. But these particular events consist of breath work, yoga, journaling as well. So I really like to host the journaling aspect of the event, because that allows people to have time for self-reflection and really just check in with themselves to see how they are doing, to see where they're at, maybe what they need to work on, or or even just acknowledge their strengths. I don't think we take enough time to sit with ourselves and go, actually, yeah, I'm really, really proud of myself for achieving this, or actually, you know what, I could work on this a little bit more. Maybe my fear is getting in the way and stopping me or holding me back from achieving something that I would want to do much further. So it's just that sort of time to just reconnect with self on that aspect, to see what it is to see where you're doing well, to see what it is that you may need to work on. Because ultimately the goal here is we want people to be able to live a life of fulfillment and purpose with truly in alignment with who they are. And if you don't do the inner work and you don't connect with self, it's difficult to ever really try and find that fulfillment in life. Because I mean, from a personal experience, as I said, I've been doing so many different things from the age of 16. I was always searching, I was always looking, I'm always trying to, but what I was really, really searching for was myself. And that's what I've come to the realization is through doing all this work, is that is what it boils down to, is finding who you are, and the rest kind of just naturally flows and falls into place.
Yeah, I think that's huge, really is, Francesca, and we're kindred spirits on this front. I was fortunate enough to put myself through a course within the financial planning space around mindfulness. And when I did this 5 years ago now, it was a complete novelty. Of course, you can imagine financial planning, wealth management. It's a sort of it's seen as a middle-aged, white, quite privileged type of job. And I'm so pleased to report that there's just no taboo around this subject nowadays. There's a myriad of articles about financial planners, wealth managers having to find time before meetings to connect with themselves, making sure that they're setting the scene for the client to be able to start by thinking about their life goals first, not their money first, and then joining those two things up. What you're saying is music to my ears. And the reason why I was really interested to bring you on the show to tell our audience about this is because I doubt that any of our listeners right now are going, mindfulness, what is this? And that's precisely because of a really sort of quite horrible event, which is these last 12 to 14 months, which we've been forced to spend more time with ourselves and with the folks so close to us in our immediate household. And we've been forced to maybe look at some of the choices we've made and maybe have to think whether we like those choices or whether we want to do something slightly different. And it's on that vein that I wanted to pick your brain a little bit further, if that's okay, Francesca. So I know that through your Instagram, you regularly add tips to your audience about helping them maintain a positive mindset. Firstly, is there any comment around that? And then are there any favorite tips that you could share with our listeners today?
Firstly, I just wanted to pinpoint on what you said about choices, because ultimately that is exactly what it is. The fact that we have finally realized, I think on a collective level, that we do have a choice, and it all comes down to choice. Choosing how you think during a challenging situation like we have had to face is everything, because you can choose fear, and you can understand exactly where that's going to get you. Or you can choose opportunity in a challenge. And it comes down to really understanding what it is that you want, and pros and cons of each. But the point is that we always have the choice. We have the choice to choose our thoughts. And then our thoughts then represent and create our reality. So those are the type of tips that I tend to give on a daily basis on my Instagram. It's very much about reconnecting with your innate power within and remembering who we are, where we come from. It's like the first thing you asked me on this podcast, what's your background? Where are you from? Where are we really from? This has been my main question my whole life, because like I said, never really knew where I was from. So that, for having these kind of thoughts and explanations, it's just such a limitless question, really. And that's what we are as people. The limits are endless, and we put our own limits on ourselves, through conditioning and through upbringing and through culture. We are, without realizing, and it's on such a subconscious level, we just put these limits as to how high our bar can go, really. We're really setting the mark for ourselves. So why not set that bar to an endless possibility and just see where it goes? Because if you're saying you can only get to one point, well, then, you're already limiting yourself. So those are my type of tips that I give, but I very much like to give out tips from lessons I have learned, because I think that the lessons best taught are the lessons best learned. And like I said before, we each resonate with one another on a different personal level, which is why it's so great to have, again, why I like doing group events and co-creating with other practitioners, because each person can really resonate with one on another level, even if the message is the same. Yeah. It might just hit much harder or much, I don't know, it might just really sort of go, aha, when you've resonating with someone that you can relate to or relate to their background or their sort of way of thinking.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And again, the power of creating potential connections where 1 + 1 equals something more than 2. I just love that concept. And again, I'm with you. I've seen the benefits of those network effects being multipliers, not just additions to the collective benefit of the group that's participating in that event. That's really, really cool. Francesca, could you give us an overview of some of the services that you offer?
Yes, absolutely. So I host multiple monthly events, which during lockdown I've done a lot online. I will hopefully be opening that back up out and about again. I'll be working with different sort of therapy spaces throughout the Kingston and Surbiton area. So we have the initial consultation just to go through where you're at in life at the moment and maybe what it is that you need to work on and what you're looking for. Then the meditation will be catered around that area through various different techniques, meditation techniques. So it could be a visualization, it could be an affirmation meditation, it could just be a mindfulness meditation. It really depends on what it is that you need. And then there'll be some further guidance at the end of the session. So that's the one-to-one meditation and guidance. I then offer Reiki energy healing. So then I offer one-to-one Reiki energy healing sessions. And also aura and chakra cleansing and rebalancing. So that is really a session that kind of incorporates lots of different modalities. It could be sound healing, Reiki healing. It will be also involving herbs as well for cleansing and clearing. But what it is when we're working on the energy body, what we don't realize about the energy body, and which is why I love working with energy so much, is that everything gets stored in our energy body, positive or negative. And often enough, we don't actually realize what's going on. So I feel like energy work is just as important as having a shower, almost like cleansing your energy body is just as important as an upkeep as having a shower for your physical body. So, yes, those are the sessions that I offer.
That's really cool. That's really interesting. Francesca, what are some of the key business lessons that you've learned throughout your life?
Oh, I've worked in corporate myself, so I feel like I learned a lot about myself and my strengths in that area, and how resilience is super, super key for any type of business, really, because you have to have the self-belief within yourself that what you are offering is of benefit to the greater good, but also for yourself. And so one of the key business points I would say is that resilience to just keep going whenever you feel there is something maybe not in alignment. It's something you need to look at within yourself, because that's what I've noticed a lot of, so within, so without. And it's kind of like, if something's not quite there yet, maybe you need to check in with yourself to see what needs to be aligned for that to then be reflected upon the outside world. That's my top business tip, resilience.
That's very cool. And when you look back at your career journey to date, what are you most proud of?
I'm proud of my determination. I'm proud of what I just said with the resilience, because it's tough. It's tough to have the strength to keep going sometimes when there is the setbacks, or you're trying to achieve something that is beneficial, but you're also having to teach others that aren't really familiar with it or don't understand it. So that's something I've had to battle with, or other people understanding the value of energy work or energy healing. I know we're hearing about it more and more, like you said, which is really great. People are sort of turning to holistic medicine or alternative medicine, which I obviously love, but it is still being able to get that message out there a lot, just wider and further, because it is so important that we focus on the things that are unseen just as much as we focus on the things that are seen.
Yeah. And one of the things that I'm really proud of here on the Inside Kingston podcast, Francesca, is seeing, like happened with you, that other small local independent business owners are championing each other, and they're recommending each other, be it to be on a show or to their own clients, so cross-referencing, and really creating a sense that here in the wider Kingston community, there are amazing professionals in various different fields, and that even together, as we said before, can create this collective work in the field that they do that is of extreme benefit to the client. So I think that's super what you mentioned there, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. What next for you and your business? Are there any projects in the pipeline that you can tell us about?
I definitely have. I'm always creating monthly events which differ from month to month. So I never really know what I'm doing next month until like the following month. So the mid month of every month, I'll know what I'm doing for the following month. But I kind of get creative. I'm exploring a lot with meditative dance, being able to raise our vibrations through movement, and different ways of being able to do that other than just meditation. So I guess it's going to be about incorporating even more modalities. I definitely want to start a spiritual coaching program as well. So that's something I will definitely look to be doing in the future, whether it be, I don't know, a booklet, but I also definitely want to write a book. Yeah, this is on the cards at some point. And, I've got this idea in mind of the title of like Life's the Spiral, because life isn't linear, and I see it as a spiral motion, hence, Spiral Collective, Spiral Tea, and the spiral aspect to it all.
Exciting times ahead.
Very much cool. So.
Very cool. So as we start to wrap up, I'd like to ask you a few quick fire questions that our listeners are always interested in. So Francesca, what do you do to relax outside of the office?
So meditation, nature walks. I love being in nature and grounding in nature, taking my cups of tea and sitting in nature and just being one with it. Dance, like I mentioned, I love to free dance, 5-rhythm dancing. It's very conscious dancing. So the music is very slow and fluid, and you just it's almost like an expression of self through dance. So those kind of things I love doing. I love retreats, meeting up with friends and I really like just deep conversations. I'm not one for small talk. I really like getting in deep.
That's very cool. Are there any books that you've recently read that you'd recommend to our listeners?
So with this, I actually had 2 noted down. So The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. I'm sure many of us have probably heard of that one, but that's just a really great one if someone is new to starting their spiritual journey, or even just self-discovery to understanding the power that they have within. It's basically like a self-help guide to just discover our true being and our true nature. But one that I've recently read is called Activating Your 5D Frequency with Judith Corvin Blackburn. The author is Judith Corvin Blackburn. And this book is just mind-blowing. And so it will just awaken you to so much more. And for me, it really just made sense, because it's about understanding the evolution of humanity and us moving into this state of 3D consciousness to 5D consciousness that's happening on a planetary level as well. So that's why a lot of people are going through a lot, or call it the shift. I would say it is a consciousness shift. And this book really explains what's happening. So you feel a little bit less alone and actually more prepared.
That's quite interesting. And are there any movies or TV shows that you've recently watched that you'd recommend to our listeners?
Yes. So I have written here the TV series Humans, which I think is on Netflix. I really enjoyed this series because it's about AI, a lot about AIs, and it's very futuristic. But the way I saw it was about these AIs were sort of like waking up, consciousness, and it kind of refers back to the waking up, the planetary consciousness waking up in real terms. So I love that. And then a film that I love is actually a Disney movie, and I don't like Disney movies most of the time, but I have to say, this one is great. It's called Soul. And what I love, isn't that a great film?
So good. It is so good.
Yes, to teach people about the fact, like kids even, this is where we need to start with the younger generation.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And I strongly second it, not only for the musical aspect of it, but that other side of that message that you mentioned, which makes us go, actually, it's interesting to think about that. So I'm really glad you mentioned that. I thought it was a really lovely movie. Finally, Where can people go to find out more about you and your business?
Mm-hmm. So you can go to my website, www.spiral-collective.com, or follow me on Instagram at _spiral_collective. And then if you're a tea lover, then www.spiral-tea.com, and you can find all my tea range there.
Very cool. And for the benefit of our listeners, I'll make sure that I add these links to the show notes. Francesca, thank you for joining us here on the Inside Kingston podcast. It's been a pleasure getting to know your story.
Thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
That wraps up another episode of the Inside Kingston podcast. Make sure to check out our guests' website, pay them a visit, and help spread the word about what they're doing. If you have any questions or know someone who should be a guest on the show, please feel free to get in touch. I would also love it if you could go to iTunes and leave us a review and a 5-star rating. We work hard to bring on some great guests, and getting a review from you is one way to help the podcast rate well on iTunes so that others can find and enjoy the show too. Thanks for listening.